Architecture has a rich history of one generation of architects training the next. Long before it was an official requirement for licensure, apprenticeship was the primary way architects learned their craft. When licensure was introduced in the early 1900s, examining boards were finding many candidates weren't receiving the hands-on training they felt needed to protect the public.
It's the component of the process to become licensed where you really get exposed to the practice of architecture.
In 1929, NCARB's members voted to recommend at least 3 years of practical experience before being qualified for licensure, and began to explore ways to help candidates get organized exposure to the various aspects of practice.
Who knows what practical experience consisted of? Nobody seemed to say, well, you sit there in the office and you draw, and you do make working drawings for your boss. And I thought, if that's all you do, you're not getting a well-rounded experience.
In the 1930s, NCARB's Emory Stanford Hall championed the Mentorship Plan, which matched applicants through AIA chapters with a mentor who could help candidates gain a well-rounded experience in architecture. However, the Great Depression and World War II took a toll on the profession at large and prevented the plan from truly taking off. NCARB tried again in the 1950s with the launch of an architect in training program, but it also fizzled out within a couple of years. Finally, in the early 1970s, NCARB and AIA partnered to create the Intern Architect Development Program, or IDP. Still based on their 3 years of experience, originally recommended in 1929, the program organized experience into 16 training areas.
I was the first director for IDP. I argued for having something more. I used that experience as a basis for establishing an IDP criteria and how to make it work.
Mississippi became the first state to require the program, and other states followed suit throughout the 80s and 90s.
The intern development program basically just started, and I think they were always trying to explain to the interns the kind of experience they needed and what was involved.
Gaining that experience that's meaningful is important. Kids were getting pigeonholed when they first get out, and this was to try and give them a broader experience in the profession.
Over the next 30 years, NCARB made tiny tweaks to the program, but the core areas of practice and the hours required remained mostly untouched. In 2007 and 2012, NCARB aligned the content of the program with its practice analysis of architecture. The study had been used for decades to inform the examination, but it was the first time the information was going to be applied to other licensure requirements.
In my year as president, I worked very closely with the CEO, Mike Armstrong, to really take a long, hard look at that program, which I thought was overdue, to see if there's a way to streamline or simplify the program in its current state.
Over the next several years, changes were made to align the experience areas with practice today, and to continue to update the technology behind the program. In 2016, the program was renamed the Architectural Experience Program, or AXP. The updates re-emphasized the type of experience candidates needed to be ready to practice independently and removed the intern title.
We've learned over the years that we need to refine that process, and I think we're being very successful in that. It's covering the bases that it needs to.
We've gone from paper and pencil and getting those papers lost to people can report their experience on their iPhone now. As an organization overall, I don't think there's an aspect of it yet that hasn't been looked at and evaluated and evolved.